Are now live, Dr. Hall. And so just to kind of clue everyone in, essentially what I thought we would start doing is just, I'm having these behind the scenes meetings. I might as well have them and broadcast the conversations that are going on. So just to fill you in on the context of this conversation, Dr. Hall, you were one of the first beta testers for the Silvertone learning platform. And you created the dashboard, went through that first retail sales case study course,
Yep.
and you kind of improvised on the format, and you used it as an opportunity to create a multi-layered map, which that's the first thing we're going to demo. And then we're going to talk through kind of what makes the learning platform a platform versus just another course. And we're going to talk on kind of the community aspects. Hunter Brown, one of your students at High Point University, just spun us up a Discord server. So we're going to unveil that and kind of just talk through some high-level ideas. So hopefully we'll get some people talking in the chat. But I mean, this isn't a normal podcasting time, so I totally understand if we don't have a huge amount of people. But that being said, I'm going to pull the segment of you talking about the multi-layered map and put it right within the platform and just call it a guest lecture. So thank you. I'm putting you to work today.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for putting my student to work today. I guess it's your student as well.
True.
Hunter, that is. Yeah. So, yeah, the idea behind this is actually, I think I took it out of the advice that you give to your students. And that is, if you have a course that you're taking in which you're going through a start to finish, build a visualization or build a dashboard, before you throw it up on your Tableau Public portfolio, add a little twist to it, so you can kind of make it yours. And so you still give credit on the details to whose inspiration it is. And I think even in my Tableau Public portfolio, I need to update that information to make sure you get credit and point you to your new platform. But I decided, okay, well, I want to twist some things up. Okay, so the most interesting thing would be just the use of one of Tableau's new features that came out in the 2020.4 release, and that is multiple map layers that you can really add as many layers as you want to. So you can really get crazy with it if you want to. But I'm just going to show you how to do 2 layers. And I'll also, if there's time, I could show you how I use containers, because you also talked about, whether you wanted to use tiled versus floating in your dashboard. And so there is this option as to whether or not you want to add containers behind the scenes. So I could show you how I added containers as well if there's time.
Perfect. Yeah. To that point, I have thought about maybe I should go on Canva and show people how to create kind of like fake company brands. So for example, the classic one I always hear in business school is like ABC Trucking is doing this. So you can basically create your fictional company and then brand your entire dashboard, and it just makes it pop quite a bit more. So I may actually start to include some just like template assets for people to start at, like the sample brand and a sample cover page.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's cool that you're customizing it, because you're right. You don't want it to look like you're basically putting together like the McDonald's hamburger of a visualization. That's just like the same thing that has just been mass produced over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's hop over to the screen share. So you've already got the dashboard built out, which I approve. Yeah. I think it looks solid.
Thank you. Yeah. So the things that are different from what you would see in the platform is the bar chart is the same, and the dual axis average in-stock percentage and weekly sales is the same. And then up here, I centered my KPIs just as a personal preference. Some people like it left justified.
One note of criticism, you may want to make the KPIs bigger because it's kind of hard to see.
Oh yeah, so I could increase the font size if I wanted to on that as well. Yeah, so I could do that later on. I also put behind here, because you mentioned in the platform video that you wanted the 3 KPIs equally spaced.
Mhm.
And so if you throw them into a container, you can actually equally space them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's less interesting than the map layer. So I could show you that one real quick. So
Sure, yeah.
if
Well,
I
'cause
do it,
I think that's a great way. If it's equally spaced, it's going to make the visualization pop, and it's just going to, on an aesthetic point, going to be very. It's just going to look organized. It's going to look put together, and it's just going to look less. I would say is amateuristic even a word, but it just looks like you're taking it seriously.
yeah. So I'm going to add in the. Let me make this a little bigger. So I'm going to add in the inventory cost,
Mhm.
KPI, actually I need the total sales needs to go on the left. And then is it the in-stock percentage on the right? Well, the order, I can't remember what the order was, but the point is you want to have all 3 of these evenly spaced.
I would say the primary KPI for sales analysis is typically total sales. So as long as that one's on the top left, that's the most important.
I think the well, I can go check real quick. Inventory cost is in the middle. Okay. Let's undo that. Okay. All right. So right now they're not evenly spaced. And, since you asked, I'm going to go ahead and increase the font size for these.
Also, look, Abe's chiming in on the conversation. Can you see it on your screen?
Oh, hey, Abe, how you doing? Oh, wait.
So Abe asks, how do you drop the containers, tile or floating?
Okay, so right now these are all tiled. I'm not using floating. Okay, so what you have below here is you have objects. Okay, and so you can do just a blank square. So if I wanted to just have a spacer in between them, I could do that. And so if you want to add padding, that's a cool way of doing that. But the way I want to do to evenly space is I'm just going to add a horizontal container to the bottom. And so when it highlights there, I know that it's going to be below these.
Right, it's the entire thing.
Yep. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add these into the container.
Okay. Yes, I think that selected everything.
Oh.
It's being fickle. There you go.
There we go. So you see how you need to drag it around to see how it goes through there. So these are being tiled horizontally. So once I add the third one. Okay, so right now they usually default them to even, but even if you have it not quite right, you can go into layout, and then you look at your item hierarchy, and you can see that I have my 3. Yeah, I can confirm that my 3 KPI cards are actually housed in this horizontal container. Right click it, distribute contents evenly. Now it's nice and even.
Wow.
And so if you want to have a real nice professional dashboard that will also stay consistent even if you change the size. So if I want to go from a generic desktop to, say, a laptop browser, it's still going to stay evenly distributed. If I have it on a phone layout, well, it's a little bit different because it's a phone layout. But if I go to any size here, or automatic, it's going to stay evenly distributed. I don't have to rearrange the pixels or the widths.
Awesome. Looking at the live chat, boom. Abe seems happy now.
All right. So you can have a lot of fun with containers, and by fun I mean funstration. So
awesome.
A lot of frustration. Yeah, my students testify to that.
So Alex Santa has what are some of the metrics you look for when building fizzes? So as a recent student of mine, Mr. Hall, well, I guess you're still a doctor, even though I'm the teacher here. What were the key metrics that we chose for this specific case study?
Well, for this case study, it's a sales data. So you're getting weekly sales. And let me just show the data source here. So there's weekly sales data, and then there's geographic data on those sales. And so we create a relationship. And when I double click on here, or just hover over it, it connected on the category there. Mm-hmm. So it'll kind of guess the type of join that you'll do based on the visualization that you're going to make here. But when I go to any worksheet, and I'll just look at a blank worksheet here, you can see over here that we've got two tables, the geo data and the weekly sales data. And there's really not that many KPIs to pick from, but you can see that both of them have sales, and this is the most important KPI in this situation because we don't have a real clear way of calculating costs so that we could calculate profit here. We do have a average cost of inventory on hand in the weekly sales data. And we do have some sales variance, and we do have in-stock percentage. Okay, so those are the 4 KPIs that we could use. And so in the sales dashboard, we just looked at the total sales, the inventory cost, and the in-stock percentage as our 3 KPI cards. But in the map, we actually did add that 4th KPI, which is the weekly sales variance to last year. And that's what you're seeing in my map here. And if I just go to the worksheet, we can get a bigger view. And in this one, that is the size of the exclamation marks here. So Washington actually had quite a bit of variance compared to last year in terms of its sales. And the larger exclamation mark tells me that I should pay attention to this and figure out what's going on in the state of Washington. Whereas although Texas is my largest state in terms of sales, you can see the exclamation mark's quite small. And so there wasn't a lot of variance there. So it's like business as usual in Texas. And because the variance is positive, I can see that Washington's going to be a rising star in terms of sales for my products. And so that's how I'd use these KPIs there.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of taking, instead of just having a simple heat map that shows geographical sales trends, you've kind of added a third dimension to it of, okay, well, what is it in motion? So this is, you're not only showing where the sales are occurring, so that geographical point, but you're also kind of incorporating a time element of, is this better or worse than last period? And that's shown by that exclamation point. So I think that that's an excellent visualization. And I love that you took what I put out there and you made it even better. So, all right, show us how you did this.
Well, sure. Just for reference, I'll show you what was built there. So if we kind of remove this layer and we switch out the sales and we're going to a symbol map here. Okay. And so you were showing the same 2 KPIs, but you're using a symbol map instead of a choropleth map, which is the traditional, what Tableau calls a map. And so you used the sum of weekly sales as the color, and you used the sum of weekly sales variance as the color, and then use the sum of sales as the size. Is that right?
I believe so. So I created that like over a month ago. So I need to go back and look at it.
I might have the 2 switched here, but the point is you're getting to see which states are the bigger states. And actually, I think you had them switched. So if I switch them, it was, this is size. And then, of course, I got to go grab the sales number into color. What happened here?
Uh-oh.
Did I break it?
This is what happens when you go live.
Let me
Things
pick the other one here.
But okay, I guess to kind of stall.
There we go. Yep. It was
okay.
For whatever reason, when I pulled the measure from the weekly sales data, it was not giving me a color gradient, but when I did from the geo data, it did. Okay, so anyways, you had a color gradient to indicate the size of the sales of the state, and then you had the size of the mark to indicate the size of the variance. And no, actually it was flipped. I remember now it was flipped. So point is, if we go back, let's go here. Infinite breadcrumbs. That's what I like about Tableau. All right, so this one, yeah, you used the size of the circle as your sales and you used the variance as your color. And I personally thought that, the first thing the eyes catch attention to is color. And so since sales is the most important KPI, I assigned that to color. Okay, so what I want to do when I want to create this, I'm just going to create from scratch now. So I'm going to double click state ID. And that loads the map. Okay. And then I want to add my sales to my color. And that automatically guesses I want the choropleth map. And if I try to add the variance to size, oh, I got a symbol map. I don't want a symbol map. I want to keep the states filled without automatically converting to a symbol map. So I'm going to go back. And so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take that same geo field, state ID, and drag it to the map. And it automatically says, hey, you want to add a marks layer? Yes, I'd like that very much. I'm also going to exclude Alaska and Hawaii so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so now I've got kind of like the equivalent of what happens when you do a dual axis or you're doing a bar and bar chart. You're going to get two marks areas here, except there's not an all here. There's just like one for each layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to add that variance to size. Okay, and I don't use circles. I want to use a shape. Okay, and I want to use a KPI shape. So I pick this black exclamation mark, click apply, and then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go.
So it really pops.
Yep. And then I can just add it back to the dashboard.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love, I just wanted to include this in the course just to show that, okay, don't look at this course as like you're baking a pie where it's like you have to do every single step. I'm basically giving you mental models, and feel free to pivot or add in your own creativity any ways that you can. I mean, because this map functions pretty much the same as the one that we went through earlier on in the course, but I mean, this is unique. I haven't ever seen a map with exclamation points on it.
And I believe that the end user can toggle them on and off too. So you can hide the layers.
Oh, that's cool.
And there's other options here. You can move up or move down. Okay, so right now it makes sense to have this one on top, but if I move it down, you can see it's kind of faded in the background. And so you can kind of play around with the opacity there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to there we go. And you can add as many layers as you want. So if I really want to do something silly, let me add in, let's add in stock percentage. Okay. Now, there isn't, for whatever reason, I think it might be due to the way in which the join is a relationship instead of a hard join at the data layer. You're kind of connecting the data at the logical layer instead of the data layer when you do a relationship. And so for that reason, I don't think we're getting variance on the connection for these. But if I was, I would also see that, oh, I could have these different circles here and they'd be different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit more visible. So if I click on color, I change the opacity and I add a border. And so now I can kind of, without making it too busy, I can kind of give
that's
like,
cool.
okay, so I can see, oh, not only is this a high variance, I'm also having problems with in-stock percentage. And if you recall the regional sales dashboard, you were tracking the two together down here. You were looking at the sales, and if you're looking at a linear trend, you're looking at variance over time, and you're kind of looking at it here, but instead of over time, you're looking at it over geography. And so you can represent that on a map as well.
Perfect. Yeah, you took it's the same concept of looking at the relationship there, and instead of looking at it over time, you're looking at it by geography. Can you see these chats as they come up?
Oh, I'm on private chat tab, so I see the comments now.
So I think and guys, part of the reason why I wanted to broadcast this conversation was just to get more acquainted with StreamYard. You guys can see AB as in the bottom, and then the comment that he left is okay. So what Abe is asking is, would an explanation help the end user understand what the exclamation point means? So you may want to have a little text box.
Yeah, we could have a text box. What I didn't like about this legend here, and is I hope the Tableau changes its feature, is why not make the legend for size match the mark that you're using? Because then it would be clear that when you see this here, you see these circles that are sizes. Why can't I just have exclamation mark sizes here? So if I go click Format Legends, it doesn't give me an option as to what type of size I want to use here. So I would like to have a tiny exclamation mark or a big exclamation mark here. So yeah, instead I might want to add, annotate this area and say size of exclamation marks indicate variance. And of course, then you can kind of wordsmith, make that look pretty.
It's so interesting because you approach Tableau way different than I do, because I've never done annotate. I would have just put in a text box within the visualization that had text in it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could add a text box to the dashboard as well if you wanted to.
Right, which honestly, I think that your way is better, because that means it's going to port with wherever you put that dashboard. To where if I were to pull that map out of that dashboard and put it into another, I would have to then delete the text box from the old dashboard pane and then add it to the new one. Yeah. So that's a lot of more of a sticky solution.
Yeah. So if I did it here, I'd be like variance. This is the way you traditionally do it.
Right. Which, I'm all for having my ideas challenged and then updating kind of my software of how I think about Tableau or visualization or analytics. I think that I'm going to start using annotation now. It's just
there's so many different
approach.
An egg, and
right.
I mean, what I like about annotation is you don't take up any extra real estate on your dashboard.
Right. And does it scale with, if you resize the map, does it scale with it?
It should. Let me move it so it actually is visible right here. And I definitely need a smaller text here, but I can
write
it later.
Yeah, I was about to say that's
if I go
the challenge of doing the live stream is that some of this stuff is really tedious. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can see it scaling with the dashboard. So that's awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for creating some additional value for the course. And I mean, I love seeing that you guys are taking my frameworks and then starting to incrementally change it and add your own personal flair to it. But I did want to pivot. But actually, before we pivot to the next section, so Alex Santana said, nice what does customization look like after everything has been put together to make it look more presentable, if you will? I mean, it sounds like we kind of have been talking about that as over the last few minutes or so. So, Alex, I think that this dashboard is kind of a good framework in kind of thinking through how to present to executives or management. I like having my KPIs all on the top and then my visualizations populating the bottom, I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of the pane for the visualization. So I hope that answers your question. What are you saying?
Well, one thing I would say is if you're using Tableau Public in your portfolio, don't assume WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get when you're using the public application or the Tableau desktop application. You always want to check on Tableau Public and make sure it's how you like it, because depending upon the type of browser you use or how your dashboards are laid out, you could get a different view based on there. So you can see here, mine doesn't even take up like all the space here. And now, like if I were to look at it on Tableau Public, now I really want to change the font size because, you know, it didn't seem like that big of a deal when I was looking on the desktop, but now seeing it here, I'm like, wow, you can barely see it. So I need to increase the size of my KPIs here. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. So now let's talk about what we're doing from a platform standpoint. So I have officially brought on Hunter Brown as my intern. So he's managing, well, really the main responsibility he has right now is that behemoth Power BI course on Udemy. I mean, I'm getting like, I don't know, 15, 20 questions a day. So he is managing that, making sure we're in a timely manner responding. But on top of that responsibility, he has also built out a Discord server for us. And I just kind of wanted to shop this idea with you, Dr. Hall, of, well, what do you think are some of the possibilities that we could do? The first thing that comes to mind is that over here, he has this Project Collab voice channels. I think that this is a really cool concept in that if we could get students who come on the platform to break into groups of like 2 or 3, maybe all the way up to 5, and work on one specific use case and one specific business problem, we could then kind of have like a live stream pitch competition where they prepare for it, present, and then we have like, I don't know, people vote on who's the winner. Then we could do another live stream where we have Danny from Amazon or Shashank or Michael Galarnik come in and give them feedback on how they can make their visualization pop a whole lot more. Because I think that would be, number one, it puts pressure on people of, look, you have a pitch to do. And I think that's the one thing that I learned about, like what kind of getting Molly that entry level data science job, is that people sometimes need a little bit of a push because they're in that stable income source. But if you kind of put a little bit of external pressure on them and say, hey, you know, your pitch is this Wednesday at 3, you need to be ready. They don't want to look foolish either on a live stream or have people watching them and you know, just have it go terribly bad. What are your thoughts?
Well, it definitely puts some skin in the game, and it definitely makes it more meaningful to get some real-time feedback. In my Tableau course, we had data provided by Seed Software. It was like mocked up data from a real estate client. The students not only reverse engineered the dashboard that Seed Software created, they also created alternative visualizations and then presented them as if they were presenting to the real estate company itself. And so then they would actually come back and give critiques on, oh, I like you did this. Have you thought about doing this? What about this question? Well, what does this mean? And so we did stuff like that. And, you know, because of the pandemic, a lot of that was done over the internet and it worked just as well. And another thing I had my students do was show in Tableau. It's kind of similar to the Show Us Your Data campaign that Al Bellamy's kind of kicked off for before season 2. And So in this case, if you use a channel like this, people could come with their own data and build a visualization or have it pre-built and then have the audience critique it. And they could talk about all these different techniques that they could use, kind of like what we just did. I think that the case study challenge, or similar to what's done kind of with Kaggle competitions, but with a presentation component, is definitely worth checking out. What's nice about Discord is it just provides a variety of different nuances to engage with the participants upon your platform. So they could do voice or they could do chat. They can even do video, can't they?
Yeah. Well, so, okay, Hunter just joined the live chat. Hunter, can you actually pop on this and kind of give us a quick demo, or are you just like on your phone kind of in between doing what you're doing? Because I actually asked him like 30 minutes before this, like, hey, can you pop on? Because I've invited him to come and talk about the Discord server next week.
You like to make sure your students are prepared. You give them good notice.
No, I want them to like off the cuff.
Yeah.
They may have to be like out in a business setting and be like, hey, do you have this? What's this? They've got to be. He's on his phone, so I guess I didn't mean next week. Actually, on Friday at noon for our typical podcast episode, Hunter's going to come on and kind of preview the Discord server. I wanted to get George Mount's like feedback on ideas because so yeah, a little spoiler about what's going on in a couple days. We're having George Mount, who he just wrote a book on advancing from Excel into Python and R, and he's going to be talking about his book, promoting it, and then I think we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth on what makes content good, how can we continue to improve and create as much value as possible for the people who are taking our courses and consuming our content.
Yeah, I have a question for you, John.
Yeah.
So when you decided to release this course, why did you choose a platform instead of just pushing this out onto Udemy? Because you've done Udemy courses, which have like the least amount of student involvement, and you've taught in traditional higher education with in-person classes, which is the highest level of involvement. Where does this fall along that spectrum, and why did you choose this platform?
Okay, so the answer to that is that I'm essentially trying to recreate the approach that I've taken at the High Point University's Phillips School of Business. Last semester, I taught a special projects course where I had the students come in, study my YouTube and LinkedIn data to build out ad campaigns. So what's interesting about that approach is that, number one, it's applied. So you're looking at real data. So for example, I mean, I've never heard of anyone doing this, and there may be a reason why, and this might just like crash and burn, but this is real data. So this is the analytics that's set up for you can see it right here, the Learn.Silvertone analytics. So if one of the things that I'm seeing on these courses that scale is that it's very cookie cutter, it's problems that are kind of like cooked up in a textbook, and they're not applied. So this is applied, but the reason for the platform is that I can only teach in person a handful of students at a time. So there's a scaling issue to where I think what we can do with this platform, at least the goal for this platform, is to scale that applied learning. So I can send out this data source, and maybe instead of going to 7 people like it did last semester, it can go out to 50 or 100 people, and they can break into groups. And then they can actually interface with each other. And we're instead of it being like I'm teaching you one-to-one, it's like I'm scaling out the education. Then you guys are collaborating, putting your own spin on it. I'm still kind of working through the overall like value proposition, because the thing that I've noticed with Udemy is that the students are not really invested. Like the Udemy model is like, I'll pay $7 and I'll have access to 15 hours worth of content. Well, as a content creator, I can see that most of the people who pay that $7 don't get past lecture 3. It's kind of like the gym model. Like, gyms have this huge, New Year's resolution approach of, hey, you want to lose 10 pounds in 2022, sign up for our discount. And they know that like 80% of the people don't ever step foot in the gym. It's like a self-soothing, to where this platform is a lot more expensive than that $7. But it's kind of a sorting mechanism in that if you only think that this is worth $7, then I don't want you on the platform. There's also, too, something that's behind the scenes that I haven't really opened up too much about, is that I'm getting like borderline abused by the students on Udemy. Like, they're like, this course is terrible. This is a waste of money. The professor is so stupid. Like, I just like I don't know if I'm going to continue to put out any content on Udemy, just because the environment feels a little toxic on my end. LinkedIn, on the other hand, it seems fine. And I mean, I'm going to be flying back out to Santa Barbara to create how to get a business intelligence job. So I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, you're giving like, Nassim Taleb's, skin in the game argument. Mm-hmm. And so like, and there's like the saying, like, trolls don't pay tolls. And so, unless you raise, you ever heard the saying?
I love that. I've never, you just blew my mind. Trolls don't pay tolls. Yeah. You're right, because I want to create a community of people that are supportive, to where Udemy just seems abusive. And it's like, they're just really rude to me. And I think part of it's the commoditization nature of it, of like, their new CEO took over, and it's constant discounts, and it's a race to the bottom, like we were talking about off air, and people don't respect things that they pay nothing or very little for.
I think some of your students got your Power BI course for free as a promotion. I know I did. Mm-hmm. Because they sometimes Udemy, they want to, because of like the number of students enrolled is a signal of the quality of the course. They often like give away a lot of it for free, so a lot of people sign up, and then because well, this must be a good course because so many people have taken it, and so like this is why like they raise the price, they lower the price to almost to nothing, to get the volume up, and then they let the discounts expire, or as the course matures in its life cycle and there's less and less traction, they continually increase the discount and thereby lower the price. So there's a bit of a signaling reason behind why Udemy prices the way they do. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're sending a signal of quality because you're charging a high price of $100, but you're still flying the discount model, where like for the launch, to be the first people in there, you were giving like 50% off. And so I paid $50 for your course, and so did the other two members that you see here on the Google Analytics. But by paying $50, yeah, there is a bit of a selection mechanism by saying like those who have an intent of getting value out of that course, they're going to be more likely to spend that amount of money. So the people that sign up for Planet Fitness, the most they're willing to commit is $10 a month because they're pretty confident they're not going to stick with that habit.
Right. And also, too, it's a framing issue of, I don't want you to think about, oh, I'm spending $7 so that I can get the concepts to get this certification for Power BI. Because it's not really productive. So where like really the proof of the concept was Molly. So we took Molly over 2 months, taught her enough data skills to pivot from her geology background into a data science background. And that was worth over $10,000 year one. I mean, we were talking about this on air with Shashank last episode. That's like year one is worth $15,000, but over her lifetime, that might be worth $500,000 in terms of lifetime earnings. Because now all of a sudden, within 5 years, she might have a pretty clear path to six figures. And I mean, 6 figures in Greensboro, North Carolina is huge. And that's another thing too, that was a huge win that I don't feel like we did a good enough job talking about, is that this company it's based out of Austin. Her manager's in Mississippi. So she not only got that $15,000 raise, but she got a 100% remote job. So, I mean, these are huge wins. And I kind of want to focus or pivot or anchor down on, hey, this is the outcome that we're shooting for. It's not let's get you past this certification. Because the certifications, I mean, we've had Bethany Klabanov, we've had Danny, we've had all these people who are hiring analysts that say certifications really don't matter. Instead, I think that you should focus on your portfolio and then actually doing analytics projects and building your skills.
Well, I mean, you should definitely build your network while you're building the skills. I mean,
Right.
This relates back to conversations we've had about the value of higher education. You know, when content is driven down to almost, the price of content is driven down almost to its cost, which is quite low because you can make copies of knowledge once it's created, content once it's created. That's why the Udemy course prices are so low, even though they may provide like 50 hours worth of content. People aren't paying for content. They don't pay for content when they enroll at a university. They're paying for the platform.
Right.
And so you're not selling a course in your product in the Silvertone Learning Academy. You're selling the Silvertone Learning Academy platform, which is not just the course, it's the feedback that you provide, the opportunity that you provide. Since you don't have as many students, you have the ability to engage with them more. And that allows them to build a network in the process. The Discord server provides that. And like platforms, you're connecting employers to job seekers when you're in the education model there. And so you're allowing your students to connect to your network by getting engaged with this platform. And the more people use it, the more valuable it becomes, provided that you can provide, a consistent quality with that product,
Right. That's a major challenge. It's kind of intimidating thinking about that. Like, how am I going to maintain this and sustain it? But I will say this, I do feel confident in that we've done 20 episodes in a row. We've been consistent with the time. We've had an expert come in. We've had a guest or a student come in and interface directly with someone who's either an analytics expert, an expert in like building portfolios, or someone who's actively hiring. I mean, that was so cool having Danny Lauer from Amazon come on. And then he got to give Hunter specific feedback about, hey, okay, here you might want to change this about your portfolio piece. But also, too, here's how you communicate it more effectively. And oh, by the way, I just hired an entry-level analyst for my team, and she showed me her Tableau portfolio page. So, I mean, that was just like another kind of proof of concept of, okay, we're on the right track of, yes, portfolios are valid, and they're a good communication tool in an interview setting. I mean, people at Amazon are using that to kind of weed through the candidate pool. And then number two, I've got the connections with those people. Like Danny reached out to me initially because he wanted to hire me for his team. And then I was like, well, I've kind of got an alternate proposal. Come on my podcast instead.
Interesting counter proposal.
Right.
So, yeah, I want to make a case for certifications, though. I think that they shouldn't be just ignored. I mean, by all means, send as many positive signals as you can. A degree is a certification. That diploma that you get certifies that you've completed courses in which your knowledge is being tested, and that you have a certain level of human capital that would make you a productive worker that can be retrained. So the value of a certification or a degree or a certificate or whatever you want to call it is in the scarcity of the signal and the market value of the signal in terms of like demand. So it's really about supply and demand. I'm an economist, so everything's about supply and demand. But
right.
I would say that if it's a signal that is relatively difficult to get, that employers value, then you're going to get a big leg up on that signal. I mean, the challenge with like Udemy courses where you would put a certificate of completion up on your LinkedIn profile is that you just need to pay for the course and click through. that's not very scarce. That's easy to get.
Right.
So the value of that signal is not zero, but it's not very high either. But a portfolio, because it's unique in itself, the supply is limited. But even so in the portfolio, you still got to make the demand case for it. Like, why is of course, what you create in your portfolio is unique. It's your portfolio, but why should I care? So you can't just create a portfolio and expect it's going to like open the doors for you. You have to make sure it's a high quality portfolio and then showing that you're going to be able to generate value for that company. So anything you do cumulatively adds up and makes that case. The question is just, how do you want to divide your time in pursuit of these signals in order to
okay, so that I guess I need to be more precise with my wording. Certifications are not useless, but there seems to be a misallocation of time and energy spent pursuing certifications versus pursuing other things for those who are trying to get either their foot in the door or their next analytics job, either going from another industry into analytics or from entry level to mid-level or from mid-level to senior. Like the certifications, I mean, there may be some job postings that you have to check that box, but that's only going to be a very small fraction of the conversation. It's going to be, what is your experience? What have you done? How can you apply these tools? How well do you understand? Because I mean, the thing with Molly is that she understood geology, environmental science. She got a data science job for a disaster recovery firm. I mean, that right there, all of a sudden, we did out 99.9% of the people who were probably applying for that job. They had no environmental science background. Yeah.
That means being able to do things with spatial, that sounds technical, sounds hard. A lot of people run away from it. It's like, sounds mathy, so the supply is limited. And then a lot of people need to do it. Demand is high. You're going to be a shoo-in. So I would say just think strategically about all the signals that you want to send. And your past guest, Andrew Jones, gave some great advice. Okay, by all means, feel free to post that you completed this LinkedIn learning course or this Udemy course or whatever course you did on LinkedIn, but talk about how you're going to use it. Connect those courses to your portfolio. And so that way you get a little extra value out of them. You start to paint a more holistic picture about what your brand is.
Can you see that?
Yeah. If one's experience is just portfolio projects, I mean, experience is going to trump portfolios. I mean, like, you have a hierarchy. You have like easy to get certificates, harder to get certificates, portfolio of projects that were presented to you, portfolio of projects that you've created for yourself, and then actual real work experience. I mean, there is a hierarchy but you got to get what you can get.
Actually, Abe, I've got a hack for you. So what you can do is essentially do volunteer work to build out your portfolio, so you can tie back this dashboard generated $50,000 in excess, for example, funding for this nonprofit. The big hack that I've kind of pushed for people is get into nonprofit impact analysis, because most people in the nonprofit space are number financial data phobic. So if you can come in and say, hey, I want to collect your data, I want to clean it up, and I want to visualize it so that you can show this to your funders, and then all I ask in return is that you quantify how much this helps you grow the organization. So it's not paid experience, but I would say that is pretty much on par with if I were to say in my first job, I helped create a dashboard that increased sales by 50,000 for X products. I mean, Dr. Hall, what do you think? Do you think those are comparable experience?
Yeah.
I think the nonprofit's even more impressive, because you're doing that on your free time, and you were the one who is self-managing and carving out that project.
Yeah, I mean, there's two effects. That effect that you just mentioned raises unpaid nonprofit experience above paid for-profit experience. But the reason you can get the nonprofit unpaid experience is because the barriers to entry are lower. And so that, for that reason itself, employers know this. And so it doesn't quite, in some ways, that doesn't hold as much of a value there because, like, okay, well, if they weren't paying you, then it wasn't that competitive a position to get, and so that also affects the signal of the quality of the experience. But experience is experience, especially in this type of market where demand continues to outpace supply for analytics. So I think that I would say it's definitely up there, but it depends on how you slice it. I mean, there's pros and cons there.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's close out this live stream. This has been extremely helpful. Also, thank you for doing the Tableau demo. That was awesome. So I'm going to now download that video, cut that clip, and then put it in the course. So thanks.
Of course. Hey, it was fun getting back on here with you.
Awesome. See ya.
See ya.